Well, hello, friends, neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome to Now the Nook. It's Sunday, and I have a couple of samples because some friends have been reaching out online and sending a few drams my way, and I really appreciate that. So today, we're going to look at Penelope. It's actually been making quite the splash up here in my market, and I haven't had it yet. So this comes from Ray out of Texas. This is Penelope. They're 4 grain, but they're barrel proof or barrel strength. I believe this is batch number 7. And then this other sample came from Sean. Now, I've had this before, but I wanted to try it against Penelope here. And this, of course, not of course, this is Old Forester 1920. So I've got Old Forester and I've got Penelope, a newcomer. Let's taste them together. If you've got a bit of bourbon, even better. If you've got a barrel strength or a barrel proof, why don't you pour that? Come on back. 3, 4. As I said in the opener, we're going to talk about a couple of barrel-proof bourbons. Now, I know a little bit about Penelope, but really just what I've read online. I know a couple of friends in 2018, Mike and Danny, I don't remember their last name, started up Penelope, and they named Penelope, I believe it was named after Mike's daughter. They source their bourbons right now, and this 4 grain barrel proof is a mix of 3 different sourced bourbons. 2 of them are a rye mash bill, so corn and rye and barley, and then the other is a wheat, corn, wheat, barley, and then they blend them together to get the results. And I believe they started with 2-year-old releases, but I think this batch 7, at least when you go to their site, it says, or one of the sites I was on, it said 3 to 5 years. So there could be a little bit older bourbon in here, but it is sort of that blend. This one is 57.6%, I believe. So let's see just how the whiskey talks. Nice bourbon nose, a little bit higher rye in the nose for me. So here that's a bit of spice, a bit of grain or like light grass. Yeah, sweetness of vanilla. Not getting a lot of caramel quite yet on the nose. And there it is, a little cooked in, so a little cooked brown sugar, a little cooked toffee or caramel. But it led, and it's interesting, it came back with that. It led like a little bit of a higher spiced rye bourbon, but it's now coming back with some softer caramel notes. Still a lot of heat in there. All right, let's try it on the palate. Cheers. That is bold, spicy, nice cinnamons and peppers, and a richness, brown sugars, more spice coming up. Trying a little sip. That's hot. That is a hot bourbon. No, it's 57 and some percent. Like this is like, what is that, 115 proof? This is bold bourbon country. So of course some of that heat is just raw alcohol, but it also feels a bit young. Like I would lean into that 2-3-year-old more than even the 5-year-old. It just feels a little bit punchy, but it is very flavorful. I'm even getting some layers of some classic fruits in there, a little bit of cherry, a little bit of hot apple. And the cinnamons are coming back. Now they're, as my mouth's adjusting to that heat, they're getting a little bit more of that sugar and sweet and cinnamon and oak. Drying. A little bit on the long finish. That's some pretty good bourbon. I think I'll try them both with a splash of water, but let's just do a direct comparison now. This is Old Forester, a real classic, 1920. So it's also right around, I think it's 57.5%. So these are like 0.1% alcohol difference. So both about 115 proof. See what it gives us on the nose. Oh, interesting. I was expecting it to be richer, cooked. A little darker. That's how I remember it. But they are actually quite similar. Now, Old Forester uses an 18% rye, 72 corn, 10 barley. I'm gonna say. These are very similar noses, but interesting that I expected this to be richer. Now coming back, now I've had a sip. Maybe it's expressed more. This now has given me a little more sugars and toffees, which I wasn't getting up first in the nose. But in direct comparison, it's a little drier, a little spicier. Let's try Old Forester on the palate. Cheers. Okay. On the palate, it's still, bringing those spices. They seem a little darker. A little more burnt toffee and a little darker cinnamon. But it drank much cleaner. Definitely more oak. Now that's early finish talking, but even in the palate, we were more oak, a darker spice palate, cooked fruits. So, it's a cooked apple pie instead of a fresher apple. It just is a darker dram for me. And at 57, smoother. Like it just went down, didn't bite, of course it did. It's strong, it's still there, but definitely smoother. Wow. Now it's starting to speak a little bit more sweetness. So in direct comparison, I was surprised at the way this Penelope 4-grain actually went into sort of a grainy sweetness and moved away from the rye that I was getting up front. The Old Forester stayed very true all the way through to dark palate, lots of dark cinnamons, cooked, burnt cinnamon bun, that kind of thing, and more oak presence, and really was a cleaner palate, smoother palate. Well, that's how they thought today. These are just samples. Of course, I have had Old Forester more than once, been through a bottle or so, but in this case, I thought that was a nice comparison. I'll try them with a splash of water, but that's my early thoughts. So, splash of water, Penelope on the nose. Nice nose. Now it's a light pastry, cinnamon, still sweet. On the palate, cheers. Actually, water really helped this one. Water really relaxed some of that biting alcohol. There's still some, but now I could be fooled into thinking it's spicing and peppering from the bourbon as opposed to just a big alcohol bloom. So water really helped Penelope. Old Forester with a bit of water. Well, the nose is really similar. It's still a little bit tight for me. A little bit more rye present. There, finally, some of the sweetness coming through, but still very, very, light sweetness. Try it on the palate. Cheers. Okay, palate with water. It still has some of that dark goodness, some of those nice deep cinnamons, some of that, cooked apple, but could be the sample. Just came to me in the mail like this, but actually water turned this a little bit bitter. So, without water, I like the Old Forester. It was what I was going to go to. With water, I probably am liking this Penelope 4-grain. It is actually, it's smoothed out a little bit. It's still got some punchy notes in the palate. The Old Forester is easier to just relax with, but it really improved with water. This particular sample on this particular day, this Old Forester 1920 did not improve with water. In fact, it went the other way. So, I don't know, just a couple of thoughts. Sit on the shelf, they're the same price. It'd be hard for me to reach past Old Forester 1920. That is a great, great bourbon, and I truly like it. And in my market, it's cheaper than the Penelope 4-grain barrel proof. But a great first entry and lots of flavors. I know this is batch 7, so it's not their first entry, but it's the first time I've had it. So I am very much enjoying this Penelope bourbon. It is very, very good. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks again, Ray, Sean, for the samples. It just helps support me, helps support the channel, and I really like being able to taste things outside of market or outside of what I might have on the shelf. Hope you guys had a great weekend and have a fantastic week coming up. Take care.